It is a challenge for her to do this, given the fact that a lot of people don't want this information to be heard. So please go to changingtheendgame.com. We need to find out what we can do. Now, along with this, let me just mention quickly, I'm getting all kinds of information from listeners, email saying no lilacs this year. No lilacs at all. In Virginia, no lilacs in Illinois, no lilacs anywhere. Their plants just did not have lilacs. Now, I mentioned that in the context of what we're talking about with Catherine Birren with the Gulf story. Maybe it's Corexit. I don't know. But we do have one place that is showing that they had lilacs, and I believe that was in Washington State, is that we're getting one report that they have lilacs in Washington State. So why are the no lilacs blooming this year? I don't know. Catherine Birren, how much might the Corexit problem be integrated into our whole environment now at this point? Do we know that much about Corexit?
Yes, actually we do, and I've got a lot of information on that that's very important. I would say that's one of the top priorities to let people know. I did want to make a correction. It's changingtheendgame.org. I may have given you that information wrong, but it is .org.
Well, I'm never wrong, so it must have been you, okay?
I may very well have done that very late last night when I emailed it.
Okay.
Okay, so this is what we know. When the other spills occurred and they used dispersant, the phenomenon that I'm about to mention did not happen. NASA contacted us in January. When I say us, I mean Ricky Ott and our group, asking us a question: are you seeing any sick people? Now, the first thing I want to say is we've been seeing sick people since the summer. Why did NASA not know that? But I think we already know the answer. They contacted us because they have been doing studies of the atmosphere, and they found that there was a measurable millimeter of oil in the atmosphere over the Gulf of Mexico. They said this is something that they have never seen before. They said because the Gulf is so humid, this phenomenon is happening. And, of course, everyone knows from science how this works, how things come up from, you have the water that's evaporating into the atmosphere. It produces clouds, and then those clouds move. They don't just stay over the Gulf of Mexico, and then they rain. We have actually had scientific studies done at this point, and we do know that there is a factual study done that says we have something that they're calling oil rain. Now, people were sending in all kinds of videos. They would be in trailer parks, 100 miles inland of the Gulf of Mexico, and it would rain, and the puddles all had this kind of gasoline-y looking, top with all the colors swirling in it. We do know that this is happening. And we've actually had NASA studies, calling us and telling us this. One of the problems we've got is because the chemicals are so bad in what's raining, this rain has rained into people's swimming pools. And starting in, I guess it was August, I had a report that in Homosassa, Florida, which is just north of me, I am located about 45 minutes north of Tampa on the west coast of Florida, an area that so-called had not been hit. We were finding that there was Corexit, the ingredients of Corexit 957 in people's swimming pools, and the people were getting very sick: rashes, vomiting, diarrhea, stomach aches, throwing up, flu-like symptoms, low-grade fevers. I tried to spread the word as much as I could. At the time, we were still trying to attend to a lot of the people in the northern Gulf that were a lot sicker. But it has come to my attention, even as of this past Saturday, I spoke to a woman at a yard sale around the corner from my fish house whose 2 children have been sick for, listen to this, 4 weeks with all these stomach symptoms and things. She was getting ready to take them to the doctors. I said, do you have a swimming pool? I was listening to her son, who was extremely congested. She said, I can't believe it. My kids have developed allergies this year, unbelievable allergies, developed them this year. I said, how long has this been? She said, about 6 months. The stomach symptoms started about 4 weeks ago. Her children started swimming in their pool 4 weeks ago.
Oh, my.
Now, this is a concern. No, I cannot say 100%. I have not tested her pool to say, yes, your pool has been tainted. But if that pool has been tainted, if we test that pool, which Robert Naiman, who's a chemical analyst out of Alabama. I don't have his information, but it's Robert Naiman, N-A-M-E-N. They can look it up online. I know I was able to get his information that way. He's a chemical analyst. He is testing the pools. He is testing the beaches. The tests are coming back very bad. We've got pools in Orlando that are coming back with Corexit 957 in them. So if you say, okay, this pool in this town tested and it's got this Corexit in it, you can just assume the community's pools are all tainted. It's not going to rain in one spot and not in another right in the same community. We don't know how far this is reaching. We're really not sure. But hearing about things that aren't growing, hearing about problems with vegetables, with people swimming with maybe even some inland ponds and rivers with, chemical levels in fish and things like that getting higher, it's not a surprise to us. The other thing to understand is that because we're going into the hot summer season and as the water's warm, the oil will be coming more to the surface. We're going to be getting a lot more of this into our atmosphere, including the Corexit, which is continuously being sprayed. When this gets up into the atmosphere, a lot of the levels that have been sort of dropping off over the winter and getting lower and lower of these chemicals, like on the sand, in the water in certain areas, will start to increase again because the same things that happened last summer are basically going to repeat because we've still got a 75% problem. And when I hear that, they have issued permits to, I understand the gas price problem. Trust me. I mean, in our business, that's our biggest expense with our commercial fishing boats is our gas prices. And with our fish decreasing, this is a major problem for us as well. But when I hear that they're issuing permits to do drilling, when I know for a fact that 45% failure rate on these blowout preventers, is a fact. I think maybe we should have, done something about that problem before we started issuing a bunch of permits to allow it all to start again. Because what's going to happen is it's not a matter of if we're going to have another oil spill. It's a matter of when.
Well, let me go back to one of the most important points that you made that I don't want to make light of. I don't want to pass it over, and that is they are still using the Corexit. So that's the item that might be causing more of a problem than the actual oil spill is still being used. We're over a year after this event happened in the Gulf. Now, why are they continuing to use Corexit? What is the reason they give you?
I'm not talking directly to BP, but we know by what we're seeing and what we're hearing that they're using the dispersant to hide the problem. BP wants this used because the less oil that shows, the less they're liable. The government, of course, wants this used because we know that our country's having problems, and we know that people need jobs. That's what they'll throw in your face. So many jobs lost, and they are. I'm not saying that that's not important as well. But, if they keep the tourism things open, if they keep the beaches open, if they say there's no problem here, the tourists come back. It makes things better for the economy. So overall, each state, there was huge losses going on when everything was shut down and there was all that fear out there. When the president came to Florida in August and said everything was fine, it wasn't. They were sending fishing boats out there to go fishing in oily water. I know friends personally who were going out shrimping because they had no choice because BP would not pay their claim if they didn't at least go and try. It would look like they were lazy bums sitting at their house. And we had signs protesting saying, please, you have to listen to us. This is our livelihood. You're putting us at risk. You're putting people's health at risk. The dispersants are still being sprayed. The oil is still showing, but nobody would listen. And it was, okay, we're all sick of this. This was a big, great story. It got a lot of attention. Let's make it disappear. Disappear from view. It doesn't exist. Tourism comes back. Economy, starts to grow again. I think there was a lot of reasons there.
Well, I am very concerned that so many people could be affected by this and no one's saying anything other than you. And I know that it's the tallest nail on the board that gets hit first. And that concerns me because you have been very outspoken. You have a business down there. And anyone who's got a business obviously puts themselves in the line of sight of those that are wanting to attack if they have a way of attacking you, and that is through your business. I'm very concerned about that and hoping that the fact that you are getting this public will make it safer for you and the other people that are in the area. I'd like to open up the phone lines at 800-259-9231 and hear from you all that are in the area that want to speak out also and support Catherine and what she's saying. 800-259-9231. I want to move to the fish. Tell me the story about what's happening to the fish. I just got a story online today about the sick fish with all these sores on them, and at least it's coming out that the fish are sick, even though we're not talking about the people, because obviously, that's not politically correct. Talk to us about what's happening with your fish down there.
Okay. First thing you need to realize is that the fish can't sue people. They can't sue companies. They can't sue corporations, but the people can. So there's your answer.
Very good.
Okay, so as far as the seafood, we've gotten, of course, mixed reports. The government says everything is great. Of course, seafood's safe. We've done all this testing. We have not found any fish to be above the levels that we find are, adequate. But a lot of this was done on what we call a risk assessment formula, and I'd like to explain that. The formula is 176-pound person times the average seafood consumption, which they believe is 4 shrimp a week, which I don't know about you, but if I sat down and ate shrimp, I wouldn't eat 4. Times an acceptable oil level, times an acceptable cancer risk. And what we found interesting was that this formula changed in September of 2010. It does not match the same acceptable levels in like California and on the west coast of the United States and on the east coast of the United States. Our levels are allowed to be higher. So our risk is allowed to be higher. It makes you wonder why. What were they finding that made these numbers go up? They needed to go up according to make everything okay. In April, the St. Pete Times, it was on April 18th, the St. Pete Times came out with an article that you were talking about, speaking about specifically pretty much it was the red snapper that they were seeing a problem with. A lot of these fish, I've done quite a bit of research myself being in the seafood industry. A lot of the fish that were found to be a problem were in the north Gulf of Mexico. I don't know if people realize how big the Gulf of Mexico is, but there are a lot of areas. The northern Gulf regions, the northern Gulf states do a lot of snapper fishing. Those fish in that area were the ones that we have found have been a problem.
So the fish that we're concerned about are snapper and what else?
There are some others. I don't have them in front of me, but if they look up the St. Pete Times article from April 18th, you could probably put in sick fish. They'll find the information, and there's a few others. The red snapper was the one that was made most light of.
Yeah, also, and I also saw pictures of that today that was in the article. That was what they featured was the snapper, and man, that's terrible.
Yeah, May 8th from the Pensacola News Journal. If you go to pnj.com, they also had another article if they want to get the more information, really get into detail about the fish that were sick. One of the things that they're finding is that the fish that they brought in that were bad had the skin lesions, they had fin rot, they had strange spots, strange stripes. They had liver blood clots when they tested the livers. And a lot of this has happened because these fish are very stressed. And when a fish gets stressed, that's the symptoms that you see. This also happened in the Alaska Valdez spill. And they had a herring collapse, a herring fishery collapse in Alaska at that time. It took about 2 to 3 years before they actually saw the collapse, which is one of the reasons why we're pushing BP to not settle claims so quickly, because we don't know the long-term effect of what's going to happen to our fisheries. And here now we're seeing the same problems in the snapper. They also, now this is something that is not quite, I would say, a proven scientific fact at this point, but they do believe that a lot of the red snapper, which at this point should be producing eggs or spawning, are not doing so. And what they found with the herring many years ago was that they reabsorb their eggs. when they're highly stressed, because it takes too much energy to be able to produce those eggs and to be able to stay healthy enough to live. Well, that can cause a collapse of the fishery. So there is big concerns. The scientists are going to say, and these are ones that I would believe that are on our side. Like they're saying on there, we can't say 100% that this is definitely coming from the oil spill, but when you see something that you see here and there in huge bulk numbers all of a sudden, it makes you believe that that's the reason.